There's this thing I call the layoff monster. To give you a better idea of what I'm talking about, I'll share my experience with you. There was a period of time within 18 months, I got laid off not 8 times. I got laid off 3 times. It felt like 8. Because every 6 months, it was just like clockwork. It was like, hey, we don't need your ass. And it's not a good feeling. It's going on. Glendon Cameron with how to make a living without a job. Third time, and that was that power tell. And I'll get a little deeper with that. 2 weeks before I was laid off, I was salesman of the month, and my numbers were, I was going to do it again. And I want you to understand that. Before the metamorphosis in my personality, where I became about hustler you, scheme incorporated, all about me, what's in it for me, FM, I was the company man. Go to work hard, do what's required, and climb the ladder. Do that corporate thing, do that job thing. And for a long time, I was very happy to do that. Every job I had, except for the last 3, I was that guy that got extra favor, that people looked out for. I actually quit a job, and when I went back, because I needed some more money, they created a part-time position for me. I was that type of employee. And I'm going to jump into that a little later, how that happens to all of us. Well, I should say most of us. Well, salesman of the month, working on it again. I get called in. I believe something in me snapped, because we're taught that if you do the right thing and you do good things, the right things and the good things will befall you. You reap what you sow. I learned in the 18-month period that was not necessarily the case. And I'm not a very religious person. I'm not even going to say I'm a spiritual person. I do believe in God, but I don't believe in religion. So I never subscribed to that, well, God's got something better in store for you philosophy. That never resonated with me at all. So that third time I got just laid off, I was just like, I got to do something different. If you continue to do the same thing and expect to yield different results, you're going to find yourself in the loony bin. So when he told me, I'm really thinking there was a shift in my consciousness that he could probably get me another 2, possibly 3 weeks. I said, no, I'll go. And the reason I understand this morning is that shift, that metamorphosis, that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde transformation happened that moment. I became that guy, the guy that not so necessarily just got over to get over. I became the guy to get over and exploit opportunities for me. I became that guy, and I've never gone back, ever. So when I was sitting there thinking, and all these things were going in my mind, I became Jewish. You're like, what? I became Jewish. I had a Jewish roommate, Derek Shop, and we used to sit around and talk about a lot of things. And this is where not chasing knowledge and actually opening yourself to new experiences really fucks up people, because purportedly there's this rift between Jewish people and black people. I'm not part of the rift. And if you really look at it, black folks can learn a lot from Jews. They were slaves for thousands of years, and they figured out the only way to not be hunted down and shot and put in the camps was to become an integral part of society. Derek told me, he's like, we're going to become the lawyers, we're going to become the bankers, we're going to be your doctors. You may not like us, but you're going to need us. So they became a powerful group. That's a lesson I think anyone can learn. So we sit around and talk about that stuff. And at that moment, it was just like, I became Jewish. Never again. This shit's never, ever going to happen to me again. Ever. I made that decision. And it was a conscious decision. And it was an active decision when I was sitting there in that chair. And it really has taken me a long time to kind of piece it together, because I didn't study the right stuff to know how to articulate what happened, because I was just sitting there, and if I remember, my head was kind of shaking. I'm like, never fucking again. This is going to happen to me. Am I going to give my all, be put in a position where someone can say, thanks, but no thanks. You go away. Because that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Now let's talk about the indoctrination of the American worker. This is one of the reasons that you feel so bad when the monster of the layoff hits you. From birth, you're indoctrinated to be a worker. I'll give you a great example. The third year of my business, I was telling my mom, I'm an entrepreneur, and she said these exact words. So what you mean to tell me is you still don't have a job. My mom grew up in that world where you were no one if you didn't have a job, or you weren't a productive member of society. You were absolutely no one. Nobody. Joe Jackoff. And this thing starts with our school system. The school systems were designed to create workers for the assembly line. That's why you have all of these procedures and policies that if you go to a higher level of school, like Montessori schools, they don't have that for a reason, because their schools are about learning. Whereas the traditional American school system is about indoctrination to create the worker bee. So that's why you feel so bad, because you are an outlier. You're outside the matrix. You don't have a job. You're not productive. You are pretty much a worthless member of society. Who wouldn't feel bad with that kind of weight hanging on their shoulders? You're going to feel terrible. You're going to feel awful. And then let's add you don't have any money coming in. So you have all of these negative connotations of being laid off. Then you get hit with the financial calamity that can happen, and is often the results of layoffs. A serious, serious calamity. No money. People have lost their marriages, homes, cars due to layoffs. So when you really look at the indoctrination process and what happens to a person that gets laid off, it's very easy to understand when you have the right tools to really look at the big picture, because it's a monster that touches every part of your life. And we're not taught to create an existence outside of a job. We're not taught that. Matter of fact, people call you crazy. People say, look, you've got that good job. You've got that good government job, man, with the benefits. Why would you go out there and start a business? Now, this is the thing that has puzzled me for decades. With the whole, going out, starting a job, you're crazy. When you get in your car and you go to your job that's not a government job, or say an educational, even with university, someone found a university, virtually every job out there, other than the government ones, was started by somebody that started a business. So you're told not to start a business, to go to someone else's business that was started before you got there. Think about that. Wrap your mind around that. Starting a business is risky, but go to this job created by someone who started a business. It puzzles me. It deeply puzzles me, because people don't think. People don't think. They are, hold on. It's a time for a little smoothie break. Oh, that's good. People don't think. They just react. Because that job that you have was started by someone at some point in time. Someone started that. Someone created that. That you're hanging your livelihood on. A business. That risky thing. It's very risky. Someone started this risky thing. Now, as you get laid off, there's more resources, and there are people out there with groups and organizations to help you weather the storm, so to speak. But I have a different take. First thing you need to do, and just going through my experience, because it's a process, it's a journey, so that's not going to happen overnight, is learn when you made that decision. Because at some point, going back to one of my favorite movies, The Matrix, when the Oracle told him, "You're not the one," he wasn't the one because he didn't have the abilities. That wasn't it. He wasn't the one because he did not make the decision to become the one. So when I was sitting there in that chair off Peachtree Street, because the office was in Peachtree Center, I made a real strong, active, positive decision with a ton of emotion behind it. Because that's another part of making a decision, the emotional component. When you make a decision with a lot of emotional energy behind it, and it's a really good decision, usually good things happen. When you make a decision with a lot of emotional energy behind it, and it's misplaced or it's negative or it's out of control emotional energy, bad things usually happen. Like, you go to the bar and someone like touches your girl's ass, and then, you whoop his ass. But for that satisfaction, you get arrested, you spend the night in jail, and then you lose money. And if you do anything else, you get put on this list. That's a lot of pain for a small amount of pleasure. So when you make these decisions, you got to really become introspective. And understand, it's taking me doing the Hustler Mindset Project and really talking about it, because a lot of times when you go to someone and you say, "How did you become successful?" they're going to tell you the regular stuff. They're going to tell you, work hard, show up, have a goal, which is true and is part of the deal. But what they're not going to tell you is when they made that decision to be successful. See, this is a dirty little secret that many people don't know. A lot of folks are waiting on permission to be successful. They're waiting on someone to say, bada bing, bada dow, padow, you can be successful now. They're waiting for that green light. They're waiting for it. That confirmation, that affirmation that you can be successful. I'm waiting on it. When you get to the point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you start making active decisions to the contrary, you could create more change and benefit in your life in mere months than you did in the previous years. Because going back to the indoctrination, you were groomed to be a worker. You were groomed to work for someone else. You were groomed to feel extremely bad if you were disconnected from the narrative of this is what a responsible and productive member of society does. When you're pulled from that, whoa, problems, issues, so many things occur. And this happens because, in my opinion, I'm not going to get too deep in the conspiracy thing, but there's a group of superhumans. Yeah, I know I just lost a lot of you there. But there's a group of people extremely smart. Just think about it. Just like someone has this fast metabolism, there are people who are born with muscles and they never work out. I don't think it's too big of a stretch to think there's a group of people who are born with an extreme intellect. And, as some kind of gambit to protect themselves, they control the rest of us. That's just my thought. But with that, you're being groomed to not cause problems. But due to the Matrix doing a big switcheroo, there's not enough decent employ for all the inhabitants of the Matrix. It's not enough. So this creates a pecking order. This creates a class order. So if you don't have a job and you're not independently wealthy or have other sources of income coming in, then you're one of those lower class people that is a burden to society. Some people actually commit suicide when they reach this point. They actually commit suicide. They off themselves. They feel the need to rid the world of their non-productive asses. Because the way the world is set up, you have to really do something to get something. Unless you are just part of a special group. Hold on a second. Unless you're just part of this really special group. And there are some people who are born, they'll never have to work a job. They'll never have to slave. And these people are not wealthy. They're not even connected to wealthy people, but they're on a certain path that all of their requirements, needs are provided for them. But that's another video. But on this path of being a worker bee in the hive and being disconnected, because you ever wondered how bees and ants all communicate? It's part of DNA. And they've got certain things in them that are just programmed into them for them to behave a certain way during a certain situation. That's what happens to you in the Matrix. And that's why this thing with being laid off is such a huge thing. I know people who are fucked up for years after a major layoff, because every month that you get behind, count on 2 to 3 months to recapture that lead or to balance out again. So if you're out of work for, say, 12 months, it could take you 3 years to get back to where you were. But still, with inflation and the shrinking value of the dollar, you didn't even get back there. You just think you did because of a numerical game. But when you really add all the numbers, you're still behind the 8 ball. And this is the thing that keeps people docile. Because you think that you're non-productive, you think that you're worthless, you think that somehow you fail society. So you keep doing things that don't necessarily improve your situation, but they give you peace and comfort in your mind that you're doing the right thing, when in actuality, you're doing the very wrong thing. Because there's a reason that society likes a rebel. Like the story of Robin Hood, this person who does unethical things to help out the needy. People love it. Like, I want you to think about it. Say you have a bank robber, and this person figures out how to rob banks without shooting anyone or harming anyone. With a high level of success, not 1 or 2, but this person's like robbed 50 banks, never caught. They become a cult hero. Because there's this angst in so many people. They want to be free. They want to be able to act and engage on their own power and level outside the Matrix. That's why these people become heroes. Because there's people who want to be just like them. They want to taste. They want to get a little bit, but due to the heavy brainwashing, indoctrination, they'll never make that move unless they're forced outside the lines. And that's what happened to me. I always had a side hustle. I always had a business. I always was doing some stuff. But I never made the full commitment to becoming an entrepreneur until the day that I was sitting in that chair and I had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, this shit's not going to happen to me anymore. I am in full control of my future, my destiny, for the good or the bad. I made that decision. And it happened in like nanoseconds. It wasn't like, well, let's wait. No, it was just like, boom, there was that decision. 2.5 years later, almost 3, I had my own real business. Other businesses I had, they were real, but they were mostly side hustles, and I always had a full-time job to fall back on. That was the first business that I had that was it. Sole source of income. It was it. It was either sink or swim. And I swam like a shark. And that's the deal. So in you, there's going to be this time and period. And that's why I think everyone should learn how to meditate. And for you ultra-religious people, don't get all weirded out and start losing your minds and like, he's trying to put the devil in me. I rebuke thee. No, meditation is a tool for your mind. It's not the devil. Let that shit go. And for you black folks who are like ultra-religious, that's a form of enslavement. If you don't believe me, do the research. That's what keeps you docile and keeps you happy. Because you refuse to understand that you can have glory right now. That you can have that kingdom right now. You can have all of that right now. But due to indoctrination and brainwashing, you think that you should suffer to the Most High so you can potentially gain rewards in the next lifetime. If you really do some research, and if you believe in reincarnation, if you're not doing your best in this lifetime, you could come back as a goat. No, I'm just playing. I don't know. I haven't really studied that, but it just felt most appropriate. Because a goat's not too far removed from a sheep. Do you want to keep being a sheep? I don't think so. So, the people are caught up in that, it's going to get better on the other side. It could be great right now if you make that decision for it to be great right now. If you decide, and going back to meditation, go to Google Transcendental Meditation and, just look at it, because you can use a word like focus. You can use a word like goals. You don't have to go om. You can even design your own meditation program. But meditation is like, put it as simple, for me, it's like cleaning out your mind. Call it spring cleaning of the mind. Organizing your thoughts, organizing your files, your mental index. Because in your mind, everything's just like bouncing around. And sometimes you have the answer to a certain thing, but because there's so much mental noise, you can't differentiate between that answer and garbage, because there's so many things going on up there. But once you learn how to run your mental environment, it's easy to pick out answers. It's easy to pick out those jewels. Now, with being, dealing with the monster being laid off, there are many people who think they're not good enough because they got laid off. They let someone else validate. Now, I'm not talking about potentially like this poor gentleman that may or may not be the reason that train wrecked in Spain. There's a lot of speculation. I'm waiting because I know usually when the emotional thing comes out, it's wrong. He may have committed it. He may have not. I don't know. But say he didn't. Say he didn't do it. Say it was mechanical failure. Regardless of the fact of it being mechanical failure, he's going to feel like shit the rest of his life. He's got to deal with that somehow, some way, he was connected to the death of 79 people. That's a serious mind fuck. But now that's just saying if you do something. Many people get laid off and haven't done a thing. They've made no mistakes. They were actually performing at a high level. And they got the axe. So that fucks with your self-esteem, because it's colliding with that narrative that's been fed to you since kindergarten. When you go to kindergarten, everyone lines up, we proceed. All of this stuff is by design. And anyone that is a rebel or colors outside the line, you are a problem. Because many of the teachers, and I do believe that the teachers got into teaching from a very good-hearted place, but they too are in the matrix. They're victims too. So when you break free of the matrix and you start talking stuff, people who are still in the matrix will look at you as if you are Beelzebub himself. They was like, Satan, I rebuke you. I mean, seriously, because you are making all that mental programming crash. It's like, no. I mean, they can't deal with it because they haven't unplugged yet. And that's something it's taken me a long time to understand. That's one of the reasons that I've kind of changed the Hustler Mindset program, and I'm going to make another little shift, because until a person is ready for that information, you could give it to them, nothing's going to happen. They don't have the tools, the perspective, or the awareness, courage. There's something that's not there that they need for them to make that move. It's just not there. And until they get those missing pieces in place, you could give them information that is gold. And it's just crazy. It is totally, totally crazy. Totally, totally crazy what will happen. Because they cannot process the information. Now let's talk about you being laid off and how you feel like a bum. Understand, if you got laid off because you did something wrong, deal with it. Grow up. If you got laid off and it's just part of corporate restructuring, learn to reclaim your self-esteem. Go back to my other video of what to do when you get laid off and really take action. One of the reasons that I think that I did not crack up when I got laid off the third time in 18 months is because I took copious amounts of action. Some of it you might think is unethical. I don't give a fuck, because it worked out very well from my perspective. And definitely don't give up on yourself. That's another thing that happens. People begin to, and I'm not going to use the word settle. Settle has such a negative connotation that people throw it around. People begin to accept that they don't have the ability to do more. They begin to accept the fact that, hey, maybe it's not my turn. Hey, maybe it's not in the cards for me. Or that expression, hey, well, maybe the Lord didn't. No. I don't think it was the Lord. I think, being here on this planet, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. There's a ton of stuff that's going on. And many people are obtuse to what really goes on and how things really operate. Give you a good example. Taking the George Zimmerman verdict, which pretty much was what I thought it would be. And people are protesting and they're signing petitions. It's a lovely notion. It's not going to change shit. You know what's going to really improve things? If every person took ownership of their life and became the best person they could be. That would move us ahead as a society. To a degree, marching, people are standing up for what they believe in. And we do have the right to assemble, as guaranteed by the Constitution. But for a person to escape certain negative connotations, and understand, racism does exist, but there's something bigger than racism. It's classism. Classism is far more prominent a problem than racism. Because if you get to the right class, certain things are just not going to happen to you. They're just not. And, a lot of my black friends disagree with me, but I know what it's like to advance, to become. I've yelled at a cop before, let's put it this way. Screamed at him. Doesn't happen to me. There are people that think that if you do something like that, you're going to die. I've done it more than once because the cop was wrong. So, understand, there's the narrative that you're fed, and then there's, under that narrative is the real world. Many people will adopt narratives that don't serve them and cling to them with gusto and vigor as that narrative kicks their ass. Totally kicks their ass. Because it's a socially constructed and accepted narrative. Like spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to stay in school because we think that having a very good education or paying a lot of money for an education at some point will guarantee a better life. You have tremendous evidence right now that says that's not really the case. But once again, that's the narrative. And you cannot take the narrative out of people who are sucking on the titty with gusto and energy and enthusiasm. There's a, give me some more. This narrative's so good. Oh, give me, it's so tasty. Give me some more. Just when they on that narrative titty, until that milk runs dry or the taste buds turn to truth and the bitterness starts to go down their throat, only then will they take it. So as you're putting yourself together, take a lot of action. Do not sit at home and this is just me. Split your job hunting time and your business time in half. You're going to take 4 or 6 hours a day to devote to finding a job. You're going to take 6, 7, 8 hours a day building the business. I have a friend, and I need to, just go ahead and go, finally, where I put up a video of all these people who want to start businesses, and we can move the number up one. One started a business, had her first outing, and it went well. And, she told me yesterday, she's like, you told me, you kept on me, and you were right. So I'm real happy that someone else is getting into the entrepreneurial world. And, it's looking good. It's looking real good for her. So start a business. I don't care if it's doing laundry. I don't care if it's mowing. Because, see, the thing is, for you to buffer those negative emotions of not having a job, you got to keep yourself busy. Sitting at home, watching TV, taking vacations, taking trips, and take your mind off of it. But, you might get lucky and get something before your severance run out. But in these days and times, I would not chance that shit. And there are people who pulled it, been laid off, took 6 months, went to do what you want. But from where I sit and what I know is coming, and I know I sound like that chick in the Terminator movie, what's coming is so big and it's going to impact so many people, because going back to the class thing, we're going to have this big class. Well, there's going to be groups of classes. There's going to be the creative class. There's going to be the entrepreneur class. There's going to be the rich, ultra rich class. We're going to have trillionaires. We're going to have those kind of people. And we're going to have a huge mass of folks who barely are making it. In this great technology, I hope that I am wrong. That someone maybe gets something going where, people are taken care of. But based on who's in charge of the matrix and how the spoils are divvied up, I don't see it. So unless you are in there with a knife and a spear and you're killing your own spoils, it's going to be, in my opinion, very bad for you. That's just my opinion. I don't know if this is going to be true, but I live my life as if it's going to be true. Because, once you become unplugged, it's very hard to go back in. Just a warning. It's very hard to go back in. I.e., once you start your own business, it will become extremely challenging and difficult for you to work for someone else. Unless it's some kind of partnership deal. Be very, very challenging for you. Just letting you know that. So understand, when you get laid off, there's a lot of things that are going into that actually have nothing to do with you. You know when you fucked up. But you went to work every day. You showed up. You did your best. You put out. You were the best hoe they had on the street corner. Wasn't you? And there's a lot of people who are going through that feeling. And they don't know how to deal with it. So, best way to deal with it is to be busy. Set goals. If you want to make $100,000, have the courage to write that on a piece of paper. If you want to make $200,000, have the courage to write that on a piece of paper. And reverse engineer it. Crunch the numbers and see what you have to do to yield that type of money. When you go through these experiences and these exercises, you gain a better perspective of what you need to do to be more successful in your life. So understand, the layoff monster is like the boogeyman. It really doesn't exist. But if you make it real in your mind, it'll be real in your life. All right, this is Glendon, and I will see you on the good side.
Who was strong in the game, overlooking his tomorrows, and they finally came. Look back on jobs for a reason I'm still feeling. Turning circles in my night rage, dealing cocaine. Too many houses in my local life, survived the strain, and a man without a focus like a drive.